Hey everybody, it's the Dude here to bring you another video. As you may have noticed by now, this is not my weekly review and analysis of the most recent episode of The Walking Dead. I am a full-time college student, in the spring semester of my junior year taking 15 hours. On top of that, I'm shooting a short film this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so there is just not enough time in this week to give you the quality review that I would like to. So instead, here is my trailer breakdown and death predictions for the season finale of The Walking Dead. Last week set up for one hell of a season finisher. Sasha's imprisoned, Rick and the gang got the Oceanside guns, and it seems like Dwight has officially flipped. First I'm going to go over the trailers and the sneak peek for this episode, and cap it all off with my final death predictions. First up, the trailer. We open on Alexandria. The RV that the gang took to Oceanside is already parked inside. Coming through the gates are a number of black figures riding bikes. Behind them is a garbage truck. This is definitely the Junkyard group, or at least a portion of them. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see Rick give the guns to them and make that final deal, but it seems like by this point the deal absolutely has been made. Later, when Negan shows up and whatever happens, it's going to be very interesting to see how these Junkyard people are going to play into the ultimate storyline. We then see Tara reparking the cars that are set up in front of the Alexandria gate after the Junkyard people have come in. We can see two of the Junkyard people in the background behind her. This must be one of the many ways that they are preparing for this attack. Somewhere else in the woods, we see Negan's left shoulder as he's looking at Simon. What are they doing out in the middle of pretty much nowhere? Negan seems to be up to something pretty funky, but one thing that this does tell us is that Simon is definitely going to be with him. Since the season premiere and Simon was introduced as Negan's right-hand man, I've been a little perplexed because they actually haven't had a single scene together since that opening episode. So it's great to see them together. Maybe Simon is the backup teen. Negan's gonna go to Alexandria, do whatever he's gonna do, and if anything goes wrong, or if Rick tries anything, Simon can come in and flank him. Over this, we hear Dwight's voice. He says, "I can slow them down." And then we see Rick pointing a gun at him. Rick says, "Why?" "Because I want Negan dead." So this is one of the biggest points of contention coming out of that last episode. What exactly is Rick's plan? What is he going to do with Dwight? The last thing we see after Rosita shows the group Dwight is Rick pulling a gun on him and telling him to get on his knees. And this is obviously a continuation of that. There's only really a couple options. Maybe Rick will pretend that he's captured Dwight and attempt to make some kind of prisoner swap, getting Sasha in return for Dwight. With the knowledge, of course, that Dwight has turned sides and will from here on out be playing double agent. Or Dwight talks to Rick, convinces him that he's truly on his side. It's possible that this moment and Rick's "why" is in fact taken a little out of context. Maybe in trying to see if Dwight is truthful, Rick is asking him the famous 3 questions. How many walkers have you killed? How many people have you killed? And why? If Dwight does make a good impression on Rick, Rick might simply just let him go, trusting that he'll be that double agent for him. Of course, in either of those 2 options, I can't imagine Daryl being very pleased. We see Negan coming into Sasha's cell. He's wearing his classic red scarf and leather jacket outfit. We then see Daryl, Rosita, and Aaron prepping some dynamite inside of a truck. I'm not sure if everyone's anticipating Negan to come there for a tribute, or if Rosita said that, oh, Sasha's there, he's definitely coming to attack us. Either way, it seems like they're rigging this truck specifically to explode. Next, we see Carl, armed, looking over the Alexandria wall. Along with him, we see Scott, Sonequa Martin Green's actual real-life husband, Jadis, the leader of the Junkyard folk, and Rick. Everyone is armed and ready to fight. Down below, we see Daryl and Tara looking out supposedly at the saviors who have just arrived. And then we see Rosita slowly becoming more and more horrified as she walks to the gate. Now, where people stand in relation to one another is very important for what is most likely going to happen in this season finale. From these shots, we can gather that Rosita is closest to the fence, Daryl is a little bit further back, and Tara is back here. I will discuss why that's so important later in the review. And then Rick, looking down at Negan. He's standing, a big smile on his face, Lucille on his shoulder, and somebody to his left. Behind him so clearly is Dwight. This tells us a lot. Obviously, the prisoner swap isn't gonna happen. Dwight seems to, at least at this point, to have been let go. and has joined the Saviors as a supposed double agent. Him standing in front of this big car reminds me way back to an image of the Comic-Con trailer that we got so long ago that had very brief shots of Dwight and Arat standing in front of this truck shooting wildly. There were also shots involving a blue car on a chase. Now, having been shown to us so long ago, it's possible that these scenes were simply cut out earlier in the season. But is it possible that way back in the summer they had already shot scenes from the season finale? Well, not really. But if it does take place in this episode, it looks like guns are gonna be drawn. Now, who is standing by Negan? It could of course be Sasha, but we see whoever this is wearing a dark coat, telling me that it's probably only one of two people. Either it's Gregory having defected, or it's Eugene, and Negan is showing off his new plaything. If it is him, which I hope it is, this is really going to be where the rubber meets the road for this is Eugene really evil debate. If Negan wants to do something crazy like sacrifice Sasha, will Eugene step in? If he doesn't then, and Sasha's death leads to a fight, will Eugene intervene? There is so much tension here. I want him to see what Negan is still capable of. Last episode he told Sasha that he'd never wanted to be a part of a public beating again like he was in episode 1. Well, if something akin to that happens here, obviously staying with Negan is still not the right call. Over this we hear Sasha saying, "Nobody has to die," and Negan says, "You are wrong." Greg Nicotero, the makeup effects and often director of The Walking Dead, said that this episode is the single bloodiest episode of The Walking Dead of all time. Now, we've seen a lot of blood. People covered in it. So it's hard to imagine that actually being possible. But the only thing that's certain is that Sasha is wrong and that somebody will die. Near the kingdom, we see the shopping carts that Richard set up in episode 13, placed somewhere else now. It seems that Morgan has set this up, trying to stop the Kingdom people from passing. In front of Morgan, we see Carol, Ezekiel, and the Tiger. It's good to see all of these groups on the move. Next, we see Michonne holding her sniper rifle. She's looking past it, shocked. Sasha seems to be firmly ridden out of the sniper position, giving it over to Michonne. Throughout all this tension between Rick and Negan, it's possible that Michonne will be watching it all from some far-off sniping position. Obviously, the bell tower that would have been a killer sniping position fell down in the middle of season 6. So where Michonne will be based, I don't really know. But we can be certain that she's going to be separated from Rick. Because of Rick's fake-out death in episode 12 when Michonne felt like she really experienced it, most likely in this episode, Michonne is going to be the one who fake dies, and we'll see Rick think that she's dead. But of course, I don't think Michonne is going to be the major death we get this episode. Next we see not only Sasha, but also Eugene walking through the sanctuary hallways. This tells me that Negan is for sure bringing both of them to Alexandria. We then see Jesus and Maggie outside of the hilltop in the woods. It's quite a shocker to see Maggie away from the hilltop. With her, Sasha, Enid, Jesus, the doctor, all gone, Gregory is left solely in charge. And that just spells a slew of trouble. We then see Carl and Rick behind him, down from the fence, running through Alexandria. Around him it seems like the town is filling with smoke. This could be a result of the dynamite explosions that Rick's group may have set off, but it also could be a result of Molotov cocktails from the Kingdom, or the Saviors could be using the grenades that Rick and Aaron found in the boathouse in episode 8 and gave over to them. What this does make clear is that the fight doesn't seem to stay at the front gate. Next, back in the cell that Morgan built, Daryl is pushing Dwight up against a wall, putting a knife up to his eye. There's no question whether Daryl's gonna do anything to him, but it's possible he's simply threatening him, that if Dwight is trying to double-cross him, that he's going to regret it. Lastly, we see Rick, surrounded by smoke by the RV, firing his machine gun. This battle is going to get epic, there is no question about it. That's all for the trailer, let's move on to the sneak peek. It is a continuation of the scene with Morgan and the Kingdomites. Having stopped them on the road for some reason, possibly and strangely not wanting them to go to war, Ezekiel is asking Morgan to join them. Morgan is looking away from him, half paying attention. Ezekiel says, "You must seek allies in this endeavor," telling me that it's possible that Morgan wishes to go about this alone. He doesn't want the Kingdom to sacrifice itself and have their people put in danger. If anyone should kill them all, it should be him. He should go out fighting. We see the 3 streaks of blood on Morgan's face. This was Richard's blood from episode 13, which would imply that Morgan has not showered or washed this blood off since that episode. Ezekiel says, "That's Benjamin's armor. Do you wear it to serve you, or do you wear it in his honor? Morgan," and he looks at him, "you are not stuck." And this speaks to Morgan, and he does join them. We then get a look at Carol, who's armored behind them. In addition, one of the Kingdomites is holding a kingdom flag with Shiva's head on it. A truly cool thing to have this medieval-style group have their own banners. And that's a wrap for the trailer and sneak peek. So let's dive into my death predictions. Now, this is tough. It's tough for me to discuss what I think is going to happen because I've read the comics. I have a general good idea of who is going to die, or at least who's in the running. So I come across a dilemma here. How do I not spoil what happens in the comics and what happens in the show while still predicting what happens? I think there's going to be a whopping 4 deaths in this episode, and I believe that none of these same 4 people who died in the comics will die in the show. I'll start with the least spoilery death. I think that 3 of those deaths are going to be relatively major characters, and one of them is going to be, well, super spare. This is the first official battle between Rick and Negan, and there has to be at least one quick casualty. And what character is just the king of all spare characters but Tobin? Yes, I think that in the season finale, specifically, and I truly believe this, that Tobin is going to completely blow up. Bloodiest episode of all time, you say? Well, let's just see. I will be overjoyed if that one thing comes true. Next, I think throughout the episode there's going to be a little bit of tension as to whether Dwight is really on our side or not. And I think in order to definitively prove to us that he is going to kill a savior. It's possible that the battle will spread out and Dwight will get a moment where he isn't right by Negan. It definitely has to be a named savior's character, so it could be a Rot, but I would just love it if he killed Simon. Now, don't get me wrong, Simon is legitimately my favorite character right now, but I think there would be nothing stronger to prove Dwight's loyalty than to just shoot Simon through the head with his crossbow. My next 2 death predictions are unfortunately way too spoilery to discuss without a formal comic book spoiler warning. After these 2, that will be all for me, so if you haven't read the comics and or don't want to know exactly what's going to happen in the season finale, please stop watching now. Generously give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. For everyone else who knows what I'm talking about, if you want to talk more about it over the next coming days, down in the comment section, please write spoiler first and then go down a couple spaces. Give people the opportunity to not have it spoiled if they don't want to. So first up is definitely Sasha. So far, and specifically in these last few episodes, she has been gloriously set up to replace Holly from the comics. In the books, Rick has a plan to infiltrate the sanctuary. He believes that Negan would never kill him, because Negan believes that if he did die, that everyone would rally to revenge Rick's death. So Rick has a plan to drive a truck through the sanctuary fence, but Holly, much like Sasha to Rosita, takes this away from him and does the plan herself, in a greater attempt to avenge Abraham's death. In the books, Holly was the one who stole Rosita from Abraham, and she did what she did to damage the Saviors as much as possible. Sasha and Holly's correlation was basically confirmed last episode with the whole Creepy Davy scene. In the books, after Negan kills Creepy Davy and tells Holly, listen, we're not monsters, that is the last time we see Holly before Negan and her are in front of Alexandria. This is what we're seeing this episode. And with everything they've given us, in addition to Sasha the actress having taken another role in the new Star Trek series, it sounds like she's definitely going to get the Holly death. And that death is being handed over to them, having already turned. It's going to be a sudden, awful, and tragic reveal. And with the inclusion of this suicide pill that Eugene has given to Sasha, it's possible that that won't actually be Negan's plan. That he wants to give her over and she kills herself because she doesn't want to be used to hurt them. Of course, that would make Negan seem inactive. So I hope the pill plays no factor in this, and Sasha, in asking for a way to kill herself, was simply wanting to just get a weapon, not an actual way, like Eugene thought. No matter what happens, I think Sasha will definitely die and turn into a zombie. But here's the catch. When she does, she bites someone. In the comics, it's Denise, the, at the time, only doctor. Rick, of course, wants to cut her arm off immediately. Then Heath, who Denise was dating instead of Tara in the show, loses a leg. And Denise spends her last surviving hours saving Heath's life, making it too late for her to cut off her arm. And she dies. It's an amazingly heroic moment for Denise, and I was super disappointed to have Dwight kill her the way he did last season, knowing what her future held. So that's the question we're facing. Who is going to get, honestly, one of my all-time favorite deaths? We saw earlier that Rosita was the closest to the fence. Her having all this guilt pent up after Sasha went in alone might mean that she would be the one to intercept her. As of now, she has the biggest connection with Sasha, but if she's the one to do it and she gets bit, that would mean that both Rosita and Sasha die this season, leaving Eugene to be the only person who is left affected affected by Abraham's death. And to me, that just can't happen. Those three being the only three related to Abraham, I thought wouldn't die for a long time, just to ensure that Abraham's death was not wasted like I personally feel it was. So I hope it's not Rosita. I hope the reason they showed her approaching the fence horrified is to make comic book nerds like me think that she's gonna be the one. But to me, the character who they've shown us time and time again is not in it for themselves. It's all about the greater good, and saving people is Tara. Given the opportunity to save somebody's life is something I think only Tara could do. I think it would be really impactful with her having dated Denise, replacing her in her death. And next season it also could serve for a way to get the Oceanside people actually involved. If they were to find out that Negan killed Tara, that might get Sydney and Beatrice to get everybody on board. Of course, for her sacrifice to be meaningful, she has to be doing it for someone we care about as well. So who is going to get injured like Heath? Who does Tara care about enough to die for? Now hey, that could be Rosita. Of course, I wouldn't want her to lose a leg, but at least she would survive. Now, I don't like to backtrack, but it could be the other way around. Tara could get injured and Rosita could sacrifice her life for her. When Rosita first got to Alexandria, she was assigned to work in the doctor's office because she had medical experience in the army. She might be the only person who could save somebody from a bleeding leg. It's possible that before this point in the episode that Heath might randomly show up to simply fulfill his purpose, in which case it would be definitely Tara who would sacrifice herself. Of course, if it's Rosita who gets bit, maybe Gabriel could lose a leg. They've had a lot of tension, and Gabriel's really redeemed himself in the eyes of the audience this season. Whoever it is, I feel like it has to be one of those two characters. Either Rosita or Tara. I hope it's Tara, but only time will tell. And that's all for me. Please let me know what you thought of my breakdown and predictions down in the comments section. And remember to be careful of spoilers in those comments. Please, if you haven't already, help this poor college student out by hitting that subscribe button. Next week I'll be working my butt off to try to get the episode 15 and 16 reviews out as soon as possible. After that, I have a whole summer of dude videos planned, so please stay tuned for more Walking Dead along with Game of Thrones and Star Wars. If you haven't been following me all season long, after this coming season finale, please go back and check out all of my episode reviews. I guarantee you'll catch something you missed the first time, and I do impressions of pretty much every character. I'm utterly, completely, stone cold Negan. And lastly, give me a like, follow me on Twitter, and watch it again. This has been The Dude. See ya.